Lights, camera, action. It's that glorious time of year where you can, yes, plan your whole week around movies. The 28th Wisconsin Film Festival runs April 9th through 16th with over 135 films to choose from. Documentaries, American indies, world cinema, and so much more. All on the big screen right here in Madison. Popular screenings are already selling out, so don't wait. Start planning today at wifilmfest.org.
Is there a science that explains God? What if the next great paradigm shift isn't about matter, but about spirit? A free lecture titled The Science of God and Its Power to Heal Us explores these questions. Speaker Nikki O'Hagan will travel from Ireland to Madison to share this talk on Thursday, March 19th at 6 p.m. at First Church of Christ Scientist on Seago Road. All are welcome. Visit ChristianScienceMadison.com for details.
This is City Cast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Today, I'm sitting down with the mayor of Madison, Satya Rhodes-Conway, to get your questions answered about the challenges and opportunities facing Madison. Mayor, welcome back to City Cast Madison.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it is a delight, and last time we spoke, we focused on the housing crisis. So let's start there. Fresh into 2026, there's a new housing snapshot report out. At a high level, what is the city's top priority this year for getting in front of housing demand?
So thank you for reading the housing snapshot. I appreciate that. I think some key pieces coming out of that report, first of all, a lot of what we've done already is working. We have produced a lot of new homes in Madison, and that's really exciting. So just since January of 25, we have almost 3,000 homes. About 20% of those are affordable that have been created. Right now, we have almost 5,000 homes under construction. Again, about 20% of those are affordable, and we have in the pipeline the whole range of types of housing, right? So we have single detached, we have twin homes, we have ADUs, we have triplexes, we have apartment buildings. And that's really exciting to me because one of the big things that I've been focusing on is making sure that we get a variety of types of housing, because for me, it's really about housing choice. Like people should have choices in where they live and in what kind of home they're living in. And one of the ways that we know that this is working is that our rental vacancy rate has gone from an average of about 1% to now we're in like 4.7%.
Getting there.
Which is great. Like,
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And, we like to be at between 5 and 7, let's say. So progress. The real challenge and the thing that I think we need to focus on now is ownership opportunities. Because we've been really successful in creating rental opportunities and affordable rental opportunities. But we have been less successful in creating affordable ownership opportunities. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's the thing that I think we have to focus on next.
Well, that's good to know. There's a lot of complexity there. And I do want to shout out for folks to go back and listen to our last conversation because we got even more in depth on all of the things that the city is doing. I mentioned that as well because I recently spoke with Commonwealth Development Executive Director Justice Castaneda on the show about what he thinks deserves more attention in the latest housing discussions. And he said that the city of Madison is doing just about all that it can within its power to address housing affordability. And I certainly felt that way the last time that we talked, and that other forces are holding a lot of the cards. So even if the city does everything right, will it be enough to keep our city affordable, especially in the long run?
That's the challenge, right? That we only have so many tools available at the city level. And we have done most of what we can do through planning and zoning. I think that there is work to do, and we are working at the state level now to get some changes in the building code that would make more possible and help with affordability. But again, that's us asking the state to, make a change. So we do that.
Do you have any examples of building code changes you guys are looking at?
Yeah. So I think the number one thing that would really make a difference is that right now, so there are multiple types of building code. As buildings get bigger, the code becomes stricter. And a lot of that is related to safety, and that's really important, obviously. But for example, when you move from a 2-unit to a 3-unit, you move from the residential code to the commercial code. It's just really more expensive to build under the commercial code. And so if you could move to the commercial code at like 5 units,
got it.
That would make a difference. It would get us more of that missing middle housing that we're not seeing because it's expensive to develop.
Devil's in the details there.
Yeah. So it's just, that's one example. There are others that we're working on. There are also things that we'd love to see change at the federal level, particularly around the financing of condos, because we're not seeing affordable condos be built in Madison, and that's a great opportunity for first-time home buyers. That's going to take a change at the federal level. So a lot of the work we're doing now is really about trying to get other levels of government to change and using our own funding and our community development authority to just build housing. We've done the work we can do legislatively at the city level. Now we're just doing projects. And, we got lots of examples of that. We're trying to try new things, build townhomes, do geothermal. But, that takes funding and it takes staff time.
Well, we did ask our audience if they had questions for you, and they did.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. We got tons of questions in. And this next one gets into some of the excitement around the mayor of New York, the new mayor of New York. This is from Erica. Mom Donnie, yeah. Mamdani. Erica P. asks, what can you do to address the affordability crisis, as we're discussing? Mayor Mamdani of New York has been working on freezing rents for stabilized tenants, making bus fare free and faster, launching city-owned grocery pilots, expanding childcare, and adding a mayor's office to protect tenants, to name a few things. Are changes like these something Madison might pursue?
Oh, I wish. I so wish. No, I have been following, actually my sister lives in Brooklyn, so she's a big fan, and I've been following what the mayor is doing there. New York's a different beast, both in that it's the biggest city in the country and that it is in a different state with different laws. On the housing front, New York has had rent stabilization for a long time. That's illegal in Wisconsin. So that's not a thing that we can do. Similarly, with tenant protection laws, Madison had the strongest tenant protection laws in the state of Wisconsin once upon a time, and the legislature went and preempted all of them. So it would take an act of the legislature for us to be able to pass more tenant protection ordinances or to restore the ones that we had. Or, I don't know, the state could pass tenant protection laws. That would be something. Sorry, that was a little sarcasm. But yeah, those are things that I would love to do in terms of tenant protection. I think that'd be really, really important. I think there's an open debate on rent control and stabilization about whether that, like what kind of housing market that's effective in. And again, I don't want to get super weedy on you, but in a market that we really need more housing constructed, I don't know that rent stabilization would be the best choice. But doesn't matter, we can't do it. So we have to look at other ways to try and keep housing affordable in this town. In terms of food access, that's something that the city's actually been working on for a really long time. And we do have a dedicated grant program that is around access to healthy food. And we have given grants to multiple small grocery stores. Probably the best example of that is Luna's
Grocery,
which now has her second location. Which is very exciting and I think a real success story, and really bringing culturally appropriate food into communities that did not have access to that before. So that's something that we continue to work on. I don't think that the city of Madison government would want to take on running grocery stores. I don't think that we would be good at that, honestly. But I do think that there are things that we can do to make it easier for locally owned, let's just talk about food-based businesses more broadly, not just grocery stores, be successful. And one of the things that I think we really need to look at as a community is how do we get commercial or retail spaces to be affordable in the same way that we focus on affordability for housing? Because one of the biggest barriers for small businesses is that newly constructed retail spaces are too expensive on a per square foot basis, and they can't be successful paying that level of rent with what they're able to bring in. So thinking about affordability more broadly for our community, I think that's an important thing going forward.
And it's just an example of the many priorities that you have to juggle and balance when you're trying to have growth in the city and do it in an equitable and effective way. And I want to turn to the next series of questions from our audience. Several folks wrote in with concerns about housing initiatives being balanced with other city priorities like livability, the desire for amenities alongside more housing. Jen G wants to know, what are we doing to get walkable, daily useful businesses such as groceries, hardware stores, and other useful retail in those areas, as we just touched on. Lauren B wants interesting cultural institutions to come to the city as we continue to grow. Annie L has concerns about incorporating green space. Just a snapshot of some of the concerns coming in. Are you thinking about these kinds of considerations as you prioritize housing access?
Yeah, absolutely. So probably the biggest tool we have is our area planning process. And so we moved recently towards a process. It used to be in the city of Madison that we do neighborhood plans, and either your neighborhood had to be low enough income to get a subsidized plan, or basically your neighborhood association had to raise money and do a plan yourself. And that's not very equitable. So we have moved to an area planning process. The areas are bigger than a neighborhood. They encompass multiple neighborhoods. But we have a cycle where in a decade, we are going to have a plan for every area of the city. And so nobody gets left out. Everybody has a planning process, and everybody gets to express what they want in their neighborhood. And so we're hearing exactly those things. We're hearing people want to be able to walk places, that they want to be safe on the streets, that they want, the appropriate kind of housing and density. They want coffee shops, comes up before grocery stores, I got to say. They want coffee shops, they want grocery stores, they want neighborhood business districts. And the beauty of a neighborhood planning process is that you can really take a look at sort of geographically, where do those things belong, right? Where are we missing sidewalks, right? Where do we need parks? We can't make somebody open a coffee shop, but we can create the infrastructure, and particularly with planning and zoning, so that somebody might want to open a coffee shop somewhere.
Make it attractive.
Yeah. The other thing that we hear, which I think is important for people to understand, is that businesses will open where there are customers. And so in a lot of places, there's not enough density of people yet for there to be enough of a customer base, or there's not the walkability to get the customer base to that business location. And so the infrastructure stuff, the city can work on, right? And the density part, some of that is just us accepting that our neighborhoods need to get a little more dense and welcome a few more neighbors so that that coffee shop knows it's going to be successful. The other thing I'll say is that we are working on our economic development plan right now. So this is the kind of thing that we want to hear from people. And one of my big priorities in that planning process is to look at how do we support our existing neighborhood business districts and how do we grow new ones? What conditions can we create with infrastructure and with the small grants that we have to help make local businesses successful in an area so that they can, like their customers, you bring in the coffee shop, but they also go to the hardware store, right? Or they pick up their dry cleaning and they stop by the bookstore. And like that density of small business is part of what makes each of them successful.
A lot of these forces really need to work together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to change gears a little bit because we only have so much time with you and move over.
You could have me on every week.
Oh, girl, let's talk. Let's do that. Yeah, it's been too long. I do want to turn and talk about voting because we've got an election coming up. And, the city is dealing with a fairly public lawsuit addressing the failure to count nearly 200 absentee votes in 2024. A lot's being said on the issue. So I want to give you a chance to respond, if there's anything you want to say about that incident, and specifically to any Madison voters who may now feel a bit leery of the city's ability to conduct elections.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. That was a huge mistake. And we've apologized for it specifically to the voters that were affected and to the community at large. And I think most importantly, we have a new clerk. And Lydia McComas is her name, and she's doing a fantastic job. She has gone through all of our processes with special attention to our processes around absentee ballots and making sure that there is no place where a ballot could get lost or not counted, and that we are tracking diligently every single ballot at every stage. And so, I understand that people may have lost a little faith in the clerk's office, but I want to reassure folks that they are doing incredibly hard work to make sure that something like that never happens again. I think, with respect to the lawsuit, I think really now, based on where we are and what the court has already ruled on, the big question is whether or not, now it's an awful mistake, but an honest human mistake is something that a local government should have to pay millions of dollars for. That's really the question at hand. And, obviously it's my job to protect the city of Madison budget, and I don't think we should pay millions of dollars for this, but I'm actually more worried about other communities. I'm more worried that if a clerk's office is faced with a multi-million-dollar settlement, if they make a mistake, that they're not going to want to do absentee voting. They're not going to want to take that chance. Or that poll workers are not going to want to be poll workers because they worry that a mistake that they made would cost their city that much money. And the chilling effect is what worries me.
Sure. Setting a precedent there that,
yeah,
there's a lot at stake. And we know how much you care about voting.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we say this every year, right? But we have really important elections. And we still remain 100% committed in the city of Madison to every single eligible voter being able to cast their ballot in the way that is safest and most convenient for them. And that may be absentee, it may be in-person early voting, or it may be, at their polling place on election day. And we want to make all of that possible for everybody.
I know that's a bit of a heavy one, and I'm going to transition to another question that's pretty heavy. Talking about the federal immigration enforcement, ICE, in recent months, we've seen raids in the Twin Cities and Chicago. A lot of folks are afraid for themselves, their families, their neighbors, local business owners. I know you as mayor have limited power against the wills of the federal government, but what is going through your mind as you witness what's happening across the country?
Yeah, I think our federal government is scary right now, honestly. And I think people are right to be afraid. What I encourage people to do is to know their rights. And this is everybody. I'm not talking about people with, different documentation status. I'm talking about all of us. We need to know our rights, and everybody needs to have a safety plan for their family. And it's sad that that's where we're at. But honestly, in Madison, we should probably have safety planning around flooding and storms anyway. So it's probably a good thing for us to do, even if we never have to use it. And there's resources. We have a Know Your Rights page up at the City of Madison, so cityofmadison.com. And I encourage people to click through those links and use those resources. From the city standpoint, I have talked with other mayors, including Mayor Frey in Minneapolis, and we have regular communication around what they've experienced, what people are doing, what they've seen success with and what they haven't, trying to gather that information in case we need it here in Madison. And we are working internally. We're doing scenario planning. We're trying to be ready for worst case scenarios. Again, never hurts to plan. Hopefully we don't have to use it. But the city is going to do everything we can. We are very limited. We have no jurisdiction over federal government. But we're going to do everything we can to keep our city safe. Yeah, deep sigh. Deep sigh.
It's good to hear, obviously, and we know, as we've been talking about, when there is something within y'all's power, you're trying to use it and make lives better for people in Madison.
And, I think, Bianca, we're a little far from this now because it's so clearly not about public safety anymore, particularly after what happened in Minneapolis. But the original sort of, false cover on all of this was that American cities were unsafe, and that somehow the federal government need to come in and make things safe again. And I don't hear them saying that as much anymore because it's so patently false.
Right.
But just for the record, Madison is safe and getting safer, right? We continue to see downward trends in basically every type of violent crime. And You look at the work that the police department is doing with stratified policing and being data informed, and it's really making a difference. And we're seeing shots fired, stolen autos, theft from autos, even opioid overdoses are down. All of those are down over the 3-year average. So this false narrative around cities being unsafe as an excuse just doesn't hold any water anymore.
They'd be pretty hard pressed to use that justification to come here. Well, I want to talk about something that is in your power and end here with a listener question on infrastructure. Danny G wants to know, what single change to Madison's infrastructure, broadly defined, would you make if funding, logistics, politics were no issue? We got to have some fun at the end.
Ooh, that's a great question. I never get to think that sort of blue sky stuff. Part of me is you should be super practical and just upgrade all of the water and sewer pipes immediately, because that's part of what costs a lot of money and it holds back development, right? So that's one thing. But part of me is no. We need to double down on our transit system. We need to get Amtrak here and just have, can I say this, the most kick-ass transit system in the Midwest.
Hell yes, you can. Let's go.
So, that. But then we just talked about walkability as a real priority. And so the city is working on a pedestrian plan right now. And there's a bunch of stuff in there that's sort of a wish list of we need to fill in all the sidewalk gaps, and we need to upgrade some of our intersections for pedestrian safety, and make sure that we're there's places where we have so much bike traffic on a shared path that we need a separate pedestrian facility. And so that's another big sort of ticket wish item, is to just build out the full walkability for the city. The engineers would want me to choose stormwater, though. After the 2018 flood, they started this process to map every single watershed in Madison, every inch of the city, mapping the watershed. Where does the water go? And what does our stormwater infrastructure look like? Where is the flooding happening? Public, private, doesn't matter. Where is it happening? And what could we do about it? And they are working through each of these maps, coming up with projects to fix flooding problems. And it's the dollars are ticking up. It's a big price tag. But bless their hearts, they're trying to work things through.
Thorough.
Right? As we do a street project, we do the stormwater stuff that we need to do. We're going to do green infrastructure where we can. But that's another overlay of infrastructure in the city that you probably don't think about on a regular basis. But when it rains, man, do we care about that.
Right. And people walk every day. The floods don't come every day, but when they come, they have more impact. So it's all important. And I love that you got your blue sky moment. You're wearing blue. You got blue eyes. The room we're in is blue. Sometimes we need that.
I think I maybe gave you 5 priorities there, but
it's what I expected.
I want to do all the things.
Yeah. Mayor Satya Rhodes-Conway, thanks so much for taking the time to come on City Cast Madison. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
That was Mayor Satya Rhodes-Conway. Thank you to everyone who wrote in with your questions. We tried to incorporate as many as we could and really appreciate you taking the time and your interest. Of course, we'll talk to her again, so keep those questions flowing, and thanks for listening. That's all for today here on City Cast Madison. I'm your host, Bianca Martin. Don't forget, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a City Cast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this episode with someone who cares about local politics? All right, y'all, we'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take good care and thanks for listening.